There are thousands of videos you could be watching right now. Thousands of voices calling for your attention. But you are here. Not because you chose this, but because something inside you did. And when that happens, it is often a sign that this moment was meant to find you. If your life feels unusually quiet lately, stay with me. Because this is usually the phase before Allah changes everything. The quiet that finds you before the change. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to you softly, not as someone giving a lecture, but as someone sitting beside you in this quiet moment, the kind of moment where the world finally stops asking things from you, where the day loosens its grip, where your shoulders drop just a little and you can breathe without feeling like you need to hurry somewhere. If you are listening to this right now, I want you to notice something simple. Notice how still your surroundings are. Notice how your breathing sounds in your chest. Notice how your heart feels, even if you cannot fully describe it. Because this moment is not loud and it is not accidental. You did not plan to be here. You did not wake up this morning thinking, tonight I will sit with these words. You did not schedule this into your life. And yet, here you are. Something inside you slowed down. Your thumb paused. Your eyes stayed. Your heart leaned forward, even if your mind did not fully understand why. And my dear brother, my dear sister, that is often how Allah begins His work. Not with a thunder in the sky, not with a dramatic sign that everyone can see, but with a quiet pull inside a single heart. Sometimes Allah does not shout. Sometimes He whispers. You may feel like your life has gone quiet lately, not just on the outside, but on the inside too. Conversations that used to fill your day have become fewer. The noise that once surrounded you has softened. The rush you used to live in has slowed down. And in that slowing, something uncomfortable begins to happen. You start to feel yourself. You feel the tiredness you used to distract yourself from. You feel the questions you used to avoid. You feel the hopes you buried because you were too busy to face them. When everything is loud, you can outrun your own heart. You can fill your time with work, with people, with scrolling, with noise, with movement. But when things become quiet, there is nowhere to run. Now, it is just you and what you are carrying inside. And this is where many people become afraid. They call this silence loneliness. They call this stillness emptiness. They call this pause a sign that something is wrong. But let me offer you a softer way to see it. What if this is not emptiness? What if this is space? Think about a cup that is already full. No matter how pure the water you try to pour into it, nothing new can enter. It simply spills over and is lost. The heart is the same. If your heart is always full of noise, of stress, of expectations, of pressure, of the voices of others telling you who you should be, there is no room for something deeper to settle inside you. So sometimes Allah gently empties the cup, not to leave it dry, but to make space for peace, space for clarity, space for a connection that is not rushed or crowded. You may not realize it, but this quiet phase can be one of the most merciful phases of your life. Because in this space, you begin to hear things you have not heard in a long time. You hear your own thoughts without interruption. You hear your own prayers without performance. You hear your own heart without judgment. You begin to ask questions that are not about the world, but about yourself. Who am I really? What am I running toward? What am I running away from? What do I actually need, not what I tell people I need? These are not easy questions, but they are honest ones. And honesty is the soil where real change grows. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me tell you something very gently. Allah often begins transformation by slowing you down. Because when you are moving fast, you rarely look around. And when you are surrounded by people, you rarely look inside. So He creates a pause, a quiet evening, a slower season, a stretch of life where things do not move as quickly as you expected. Not because He has forgotten you, but because He wants you to notice something. Have you ever watched the sky just before dawn? The night becomes very still. The air feels different. The darkness deepens just a little more. And if you did not know what was coming, you might think this is the deepest part of the night. But in reality, it is the closest moment to morning. Your heart can go through the same experience. This quiet you are feeling may not be the absence of something, it may be the nearness of something. You may notice that fewer people are around you now, fewer voices are influencing you, fewer opinions are shaping your choices. And this can feel uncomfortable because human beings are not built to enjoy being alone with their thoughts at first. But this is often where Allah brings you closer to Him, not through crowds, not through applause, not through attention, but through stillness. In the quiet, your prayers change. They become less formal, less scripted, more honest. You stop worrying about saying the right words. You start saying the real ones. You may find yourself speaking to Allah in your own language, in your own way, with your own emotion, sometimes with gratitude, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with tears you did not plan to shed. And in those moments, something deepens inside you. Your relationship with Allah becomes less about routine and more about connection. This is something that rarely happens when life is loud. Let me speak to the part of you that feels like nothing is happening right now. You may look at your life and think, I am stuck. You may feel like the doors you hoped would open are still closed. The changes you prayed for have not arrived yet. The answers you asked for are still not clear, and that can be heavy. But consider this. When a seed is placed in the soil, from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. The ground is still, the surface does not change. But underneath, something powerful is taking place. The seed is breaking, roots are forming. Life is pushing outward in a direction you cannot see yet. If you were to dig it up too early, you would destroy the very process that allows it to grow. Sometimes Allah keeps you in the quiet, not because He is delaying you, but because He is protecting the process. There are changes that cannot happen in front of everyone. There are strengths that cannot be built in public. There are parts of you that need to be shaped in private. So He creates a space where you are less seen, less distracted, less pulled in every direction. And in that space, He works on you. Your patience grows even if you do not notice it. Your awareness deepens even if you cannot measure it. Your heart softens even if the world does not see it. You may not feel successful in this season. You may not feel ahead, but you may be becoming someone who can carry what is coming, and that is far more important. Let me speak gently to the fear that sometimes comes with this quiet. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of being left behind, the fear that everyone else is moving forward while you are standing still. My dear brother, my dear sister, Allah does not lose track of a single soul. Not in a crowd, not in a quiet room, not in a forgotten corner of the world. If He can count every leaf that falls, every star in the sky, every drop of rain that touches the earth, do you really think your life is unnoticed? This quiet moment you are in is seen. Every prayer you whisper is heard. Every tear you hide is known. Every question you carry is understood. And sometimes the greatest mercy is not in giving you what you ask for right away. Sometimes it is in preparing you to receive it without losing yourself. So if your life feels quiet, do not rush to fill it with noise. Do not rush to distract yourself from what this season is trying to show you. Sit with it gently. Ask Allah to guide you through it, not out of it. Because this quiet may be doing something for you that constant movement never could. It may be teaching you who you are when nothing is demanding your attention. And that is often where real strength begins. Let me leave you with this thought. My dear brother, my dear sister, the quiet you feel is not the absence of His presence. It is the closeness of it. And sometimes Allah comes nearest to the heart when everything else becomes still. Why Allah removes the noise before He reveals the path? My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to you in this soft moment, because this lesson is not meant for a rushing heart. It is meant for the one who has finally slowed down enough to feel the weight they have been carrying. Have you noticed something about your life lately? How certain things that once filled your days have grown quieter. How some conversations no longer happen. How some places no longer feel the same. How some people no longer stand as close as they once did. And in that quiet, a question begins to rise inside you. Why is this being taken away from me? It is a natural question, a human one, because we often measure stability by what stays the same. We feel safe when our routines remain untouched. We feel comfort when familiar faces keep showing up. We feel grounded when our world looks predictable. So when something changes, even slowly, it can feel like loss. But my dear brother, my dear sister, let me offer you a gentler way to see this. Not every removal is a punishment. Not every ending is a rejection. Not every closed door is a sign that you have failed. Sometimes Allah removes the noise because the noise was covering the direction. Think about a room filled with voices. Everyone is speaking at once. Advice is coming from every side. Opinions are pulling you in different directions. Expectations are pressing on your chest. In that room, how do you hear a whisper? You cannot. So Allah lowers the volume of the room. He does not always do it suddenly. He often does it slowly, quietly, almost gently. A message comes less often. An invitation stops arriving. A role you played in someone's life begins to fade. A routine that once defined your days begins to break. At first, you may resist it. You may try to hold on. You may wonder what you did wrong. But what if this is not about what you did wrong? What if this is about where Allah is trying to lead you next? When life is full of noise, you tend to move without thinking. You follow patterns because they are familiar. You stay in places because they are comfortable. You keep people close because they are known, not necessarily because they are meant. Noise has a way of keeping you where you are. Silence has a way of making you look forward. In this quiet phase, you may notice that your heart starts to question things it once accepted without thinking. Why am I doing this? Why am I chasing that? Why does this matter so much to me? Does this bring me closer to peace or further away from it? These questions do not usually rise in a busy life. They rise in a still one. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable, because it does not distract you. It does not entertain you. It does not let you hide. It gently places a mirror in front of your soul. And in that mirror, you begin to see things clearly. You may begin to realize that some of the noise in your life was not helping you grow, it was helping you stay the same. Some of the voices were not guiding you. They were shaping you into a version of yourself that was easy for the world to understand, but hard for your heart to recognize. So Allah removes the noise, not all at once, not harshly, but in a way that leaves space. And in that space, something new begins. You start to hear your own prayers differently. You start to feel your own needs more honestly. You start to sense what brings calm to your chest and what tightens it. This is where Allah begins to draw your path, not on the outside of your life, but on the inside of your heart. Let me speak to the feeling of confusion that often comes in this season. You may think, if Allah is guiding me, why does everything feel unclear? But guidance does not always come as a map. Sometimes it comes as a pull away from certain places, a pull away from certain habits, a pull away from certain people, a pull away from the version of you that no longer fits who you are becoming. And at first, that pull does not tell you where you are going. It only tells you where you cannot stay. This is difficult for the human heart because we like certainty, we like plans, we like knowing what comes next. But faith often grows in the space between what you left and what has not yet arrived. This is where you learn to walk without seeing the full road. This is where you learn to trust the one who does. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me remind you of something very simple and very powerful. If Allah is removing something from your life, it is never without purpose. He does not empty your hands just to leave them empty. He empties them to place something else inside. But before He does, He makes sure your heart is ready to receive it. Think about how easily we hold on to what is familiar, even when it no longer brings peace. We cling to habits, roles, and relationships because they feel like part of who we are. So sometimes Allah gently loosens our grip, not to hurt us, but to free us. This is why this quiet phase can feel like standing in the middle of nowhere. You are no longer where you were, but you are not yet where you will be. And in that middle space, it can feel uncomfortable, empty, uncertain. But this is often where the most honest growth happens, because now you are not moving for people. You are not performing for approval. You are not following a script. You are listening to your heart, listening to your conscience, listening to the gentle guidance of Allah. And slowly, without a loud announcement, your direction begins to shift. You may not wake up one day and say, now I know exactly where I am going. But you may wake up and realize, I no longer want to go where I used to. And that, my dear brother, my dear sister, is also guidance. Let me speak to the fear that sometimes comes with this silence. The fear of making the wrong move. The fear of stepping away from something and regretting it. The fear of being alone in your choices. Remember this, Allah does not guide you into a place where He will abandon you. If He is pulling you away from something, He is also walking with you towards something else, even if you cannot see it yet. This is why the noise must go first. Because if your ears are full of the world, your heart cannot hear Him. So in this quiet season, do not rush to fill the space with distractions. Do not rush to replace what was removed just to feel busy again. Sit in the stillness for a moment. Ask Allah, not just for answers, but for understanding. Because sometimes the path is not revealed as a destination. It is revealed as a change in who you are becoming. And when that change settles inside you, the direction outside you will begin to make sense. Let me leave you with this, my dear brother, my dear sister. Silence is not always the absence of guidance. Sometimes it is the sound of Allah clearing the way for you to hear it. The hidden work Allah does when nothing seems to be happening. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to you in this quiet moment, because this lesson is for the part of you that feels tired of waiting. The part of you that keeps looking at your life and thinking, I am praying, but I don't see anything changing. That feeling can be heavy. It can sit in your chest like a slow ache, not sharp enough to cry about every day, but deep enough to make you wonder at night. Is Allah hearing me? Am I doing something wrong? Why does it feel like I am standing still while time keeps moving? These are not weak questions. They are human ones. Let me tell you something gently. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean there is no progress. We live in a world that teaches us to measure everything by what can be seen. We celebrate what is visible. We count what can be posted. We value what can be announced. But Allah often works in places that do not make noise. He works in the heart. He works in the mind. He works in the unseen parts of who you are. Think about how a tree grows. You notice the branches when they stretch outward. You admire the leaves when they appear. You enjoy the shade when it finally stands tall. But the strongest part of the tree is not what you see. It is the roots. And those roots grow in darkness. They push through the soil where no one claps for them. They spread where no one notices. They strengthen in silence. If a tree tried to grow tall before its roots were deep, the first strong wind would bring it down. The same is true for the human soul. If blessings come before the heart is ready, they can break you instead of lift you. So Allah often begins by strengthening what is hidden. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the season where your life feels unchanged on the outside. You wake up, you go through your day. You sleep and it feels like yesterday repeated itself. This can make you feel invisible. It can make you feel like your efforts do not matter. But let me tell you something that may comfort you. Some of the most important changes in your life will never be visible to anyone else. The moment you choose patience instead of anger. The moment you choose honesty instead of convenience. The moment you choose prayer instead of despair. The moment you choose trust instead of panic. These moments do not trend. They do not get celebrated. They do not get announced. But in the sight of Allah, they carry immense weight. In this quiet phase, Allah may be teaching you to respond differently to the same situations. You may not notice it at first. You may still feel frustrated. You may still feel tired. You may still feel unsure. But slowly, something shifts. You react with a little more calm. You speak with a little more care. You let go with a little more ease. This is not small. This is transformation. Let me speak to the feeling of delay that often lives in this season. You may feel like your life is paused, but consider this. When a builder wants to construct something strong, they spend a long time on the foundation. They dig, they measure, they reinforce, they check again and again. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. People walk by and see a hole in the ground. They do not see the planning. They do not see the measuring. They do not see the reinforcement. But without that hidden work, whatever rises above the ground will not last. Allah builds in a similar way. He often strengthens your foundation before He raises your life to a new level. This is why this season can feel slow, because Allah is not rushing something that needs to stand. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the part of you that feels tired of being strong. You may feel like you have been patient for a long time, like you have been waiting for a long time, like you have been carrying hope quietly for a long time. And some nights you may feel like setting it down. In those moments, remember this: Allah does not test you to see you fall. He tests you to see you rise in ways you did not know you could. Every time you choose to keep going, even softly, even imperfectly, something inside you grows. Not in a way that makes you loud, but in a way that makes you steady. Let me speak to the fear that sometimes comes when you do not see clear results. The fear that you are wasting time, the fear that you made the wrong choices, the fear that you should have taken a different path. But what if this season is not about choosing the right path? What if it is about becoming the right person for the path that is coming? There are doors that will not open for the version of you that you were. There are responsibilities that cannot be carried by the heart you had before. There are blessings that require a depth you did not yet possess. So Allah deepens you. He uses waiting to stretch your patience. He uses silence to strengthen your trust. He uses uncertainty to teach you reliance. These are not comfortable lessons, but they are powerful ones. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the nights when your prayers feel quiet. When you speak to Allah and do not feel an immediate answer. When you ask and the sky does not change. When you hope and the situation looks the same. Those nights can feel heavy. But consider this: just because you do not hear a response does not mean your words did not reach Him. Sometimes Allah answers by changing the situation. Sometimes He answers by changing you. And the second answer often lasts longer. You may not get what you asked for right away, but you may receive something that prepares you for what you will receive later. A stronger heart, a calmer mind, a deeper connection. These are gifts, even if they do not look like the ones you imagined. Let me speak to the moment when you start to feel different, even if you cannot explain why. You may notice that things that once bothered you do not hold the same power, that people's opinions do not shake you the way they used to, that your sense of worth is becoming quieter but firmer. This is not coincidence. This is growth. Growth often feels like loss before it feels like gain. You lose certain expectations. You lose certain attachments. You lose certain versions of yourself. But what you gain is something steadier. A sense of who you are when no one is watching. A sense of what matters when everything else falls away. A sense of who you turn to when the world feels far. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me remind you of something simple. Allah does not waste a single moment of your life. Not the waiting, not the confusion, not the quiet, not the tears. Everything is being used. Even the days that feel empty are shaping something inside you. So if you are in a season where nothing seems to be happening, do not rush to escape it. Do not rush to label it as failure. Sit with it gently. Ask Allah, what are you teaching me here? And listen not just for words, but for changes in your heart. Because sometimes the greatest sign that Allah is working in your life is not what is changing around you. It is what is changing within you. Let me leave you with this, my dear brother, my dear sister. The hidden work Allah does inside you will one day hold up the visible blessings you receive. And when that day comes, you will not look back at this quiet season and call it empty. You will call it necessary. Because without it, you would not have been ready for what came next. The truth behind feeling left behind. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the quiet place in your heart where comparison lives, the place you rarely talk about but often visit when you are alone. You may be scrolling through your phone late at night. You see people smiling, people celebrating, people announcing new beginnings, new achievements, new chapters. And even if you are happy for them, something small and heavy can form inside you. A gentle question, a quiet ache. Why not me? Why not yet? Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward and I am standing still? These thoughts do not always come with anger. Sometimes they come with tiredness, sometimes with sadness, sometimes with a soft kind of disappointment you do not know how to explain. Let me tell you something with kindness. Feeling left behind does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. We live in a world that shows us the highlights of other people's lives, but rarely their hidden struggles. We see the smiles, but not the nights of worry. We see the celebrations, but not the long seasons of uncertainty that came before them. So when you look at your own quiet life next to someone else's loud moment, it can feel unfair. But my dear brother, my dear sister, Allah does not write the same story for every soul. Not every life is meant to unfold in public. Not every journey is meant to be fast. Not every blessing is meant to arrive early. Some lives are built slowly, carefully, quietly. Think about how a piece of pottery is made. The clay is pressed, it is turned, it is shaped again and again. At times, it may look like it is being broken, not formed. But in the hands of the potter, every pressure has a purpose. Your life can feel like that in this season. You may feel like you are being pressed by waiting, turned by uncertainty, shaped by situations you did not choose. And from the inside, it may feel uncomfortable. But in the hands of Allah, nothing is random. Let me speak to the idea of being behind. Behind compared to what? Behind compared to whom? Everyone is running a different race, on a different path, toward a different destination. Some people are given early success but carry heavy responsibility with it. Some people are given early attention but struggle with keeping their heart steady. Some people are given early blessings but are tested in ways you cannot see. You only see the part of their story that is visible. You do not see what they carry when they go to sleep. So when you measure your life against someone else's moment, you are comparing 2 pages from 2 different books. It will never be fair to either of you. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me offer you a softer way to look at your pace. What if Allah is not slowing you down? What if He is strengthening you? Some hearts can move quickly without breaking. Some hearts need to be deepened before they are lifted. There are blessings that feel light when you see them on someone else, but feel heavy when you carry them yourself. Marriage, responsibility, leadership, recognition, success, influence. These are not just gifts, they are trusts. And every trust requires a certain kind of heart. So when Allah delays something you desire, it does not always mean not now because you are unworthy. Sometimes it means not yet because you are still being prepared. Let me speak to the loneliness that can come with this feeling. When you feel like you are in a different place in life than the people around you, it can feel isolating. Friends move on, circles change, conversations shift, and you may find yourself sitting quietly, listening to stories that no longer feel like they belong to your world. This can make you feel invisible. But let me tell you something gently. Just because your life is not loud does not mean it is not meaningful. Some of the most important work Allah does in a person's life is done in quiet rooms, not on bright stages. In this season, you may be learning how to be at peace without being praised, how to stay steady without being seen, how to trust without being reassured. These are not small lessons. They build a kind of strength that does not depend on applause. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the pressure of timelines. The age you thought you would be at a certain place, the milestones you thought you would reach by now, the life you imagined you would be living at this point. It can hurt when reality does not match the picture you once carried in your mind. But remember this, your timeline was created with limited vision. Allah's timeline was written with full knowledge. He sees what you do not. He knows what you are not ready for yet. He knows what would harm you if it came too soon. So when your life feels slow, it may not be because you are late. It may be because Allah is early in protecting you. Let me speak to the quiet moments when you feel like you are falling behind the world. You may feel like the world is running and you are walking. But sometimes walking allows you to notice things that running never does. You notice your breath. You notice the ground beneath your feet. You notice the people around you. You notice what truly matters. And in that noticing, your heart becomes softer, more aware, more present. These are not qualities that grow in a rushed life. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me remind you of something very simple. Allah does not measure your life by speed. He measures it by sincerity, not by how fast you reach a milestone, but by how you carry your heart along the way. There are people who arrive quickly but arrive empty, and there are people who arrive slowly but arrive whole. Let me speak to the fear that sometimes hides beneath this feeling of being left behind. The fear of missing out, the fear of making the wrong choices, the fear that life is passing you by. Remember this, what is meant for you will not pass you by. And what passes you by was never meant to stay. Allah's plans do not miss their target. Not in a crowded city, not in a quiet room, not in a forgotten moment. So if your life feels slower than the lives around you, do not rush to judge it. Ask yourself instead, what is Allah teaching me here? What is He building inside me in this space? Because sometimes the person who arrives last is the one who arrives strongest. Let me leave you with this, my dear brother, my dear sister. Feeling left behind can make you feel small, but in the sight of Allah, you are not behind at all. You are exactly where you need to be to become who you are meant to be, learning to stand without leaning on the world. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to you in this soft moment, because this lesson is for the part of you that feels tired of depending on things that keep changing. There is a quiet realization that often comes in seasons like this, a realization that people, circumstances, and situations can shift without warning. What felt solid yesterday can feel distant today. What felt certain can suddenly feel unsure. And when that happens, you may feel a kind of weakness rise inside you, a feeling of being unsteady, a feeling of not knowing where to place your weight, a feeling of wondering what will hold you if everything else moves. This is not a comfortable place to be, but it can be a powerful one, because this is often the moment where Allah gently teaches you something deeper than comfort. He teaches you reliance. We live in a world where we are encouraged to lean on what we can see. We lean on people for reassurance. We lean on routines for stability. We lean on plans for a sense of control. We lean on achievements for a sense of worth. And there is nothing wrong with appreciating these things. But when they become the main place your heart rests, they can also become the main place your heart breaks. So sometimes Allah allows those supports to feel lighter, not to make you fall, but to teach you how to stand. Let me speak to the moment when you realize that the world cannot always carry what you are carrying. You may talk to someone and still feel unheard. You may explain your pain and still feel misunderstood. You may be surrounded by people and still feel alone. This can be one of the heaviest feelings in the human experience, but it can also be the doorway to something more steady. Because in that moment, you often turn toward Allah in a different way, not just in routine, not just in habit, but in need. Your words become simpler. Your prayers become more honest. Your silence becomes more meaningful. You may find yourself speaking to Allah in your own language, in your own tone, in your own emotion, not trying to sound right, not trying to say the perfect thing, just saying the real thing. And in that honesty, something changes. You begin to feel that you do not need to perform to be heard. You do not need to impress to be understood. You just need to be present. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the idea of strength. The world often teaches us that strength means not needing anyone, that being strong means being independent, unbothered, untouched. But in the sight of Allah, strength often looks different. Strength looks like knowing where to turn when you are weak. Strength looks like lowering your head when your heart is heavy. Strength looks like trusting when you do not understand. In this season, you may be learning a kind of strength that is quiet, a strength that does not announce itself, a strength that does not seek attention, a strength that simply holds you steady when the ground feels unsure. Let me speak to the times when you feel tempted to reach for anything that will make the quiet go away. Distraction, noise, busyness, anything to avoid sitting with what you feel. This is very human. Silence can feel uncomfortable because it brings you face to face with your own heart. But if you can stay with it gently, something beautiful can happen. You begin to realize that you are not alone in the quiet. That even when no one else knows what you are carrying, Allah does. That even when no one else sees your effort, Allah does. That even when no one else hears your unspoken prayers, Allah does. And this realization can bring a kind of peace that does not depend on outside circumstances. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the moment when you feel like you are standing on your own. You may feel like the support you expected is not there. The encouragement you hoped for did not come. The understanding you needed feels far away. And in that moment, it can feel like you are being asked to carry yourself. But you are not being asked to carry yourself alone. You are being invited to lean on Allah instead of leaning on the world. This does not mean you stop caring about people. It does not mean you stop valuing connection. It means your heart's deepest support comes from somewhere that cannot leave. Because people, no matter how kind, have limits. Circumstances, no matter how stable, can change. But Allah does not shift. Let me speak to the quiet confidence that can grow in this season. When you begin to rely more on Allah, something inside you settles. You may notice that people's opinions do not shake you as much. That situations do not control your mood the way they used to. That you are less desperate for approval and more focused on sincerity. This does not make you distant. It makes you grounded. You begin to move through the world with a softer heart and a steadier step. Not because life became easier, but because your foundation became stronger. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the nights when you feel like you are carrying too much. When you lie down and your mind keeps running. When worries replay, when questions echo. In those moments, remember this. You are not meant to carry everything. You are meant to carry your effort. Allah carries the outcome. You are meant to take the step. Allah arranges the path. You are meant to make the dua. Allah decides the answer. This understanding can lift a heavy weight from your heart because it reminds you that you are not alone in this journey. You are walking it with the one who sees the whole road. Let me speak to the idea of standing. Standing does not mean you never feel tired. Standing does not mean you never feel uncertain. Standing means you keep turning toward Allah. Even when you feel weak, it means you keep showing up. Even when you do not feel strong, it means you keep trusting even when you do not fully understand. And over time, this kind of standing builds a quiet dignity inside you. A sense that no matter what happens around you, you know where you belong. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me leave you with this gentle reminder. The world can support you for a moment. Allah can hold you for a lifetime. So in this season, if you feel like the world is stepping back, do not be afraid. It may be because Allah is stepping closer. And sometimes the greatest strength you will ever learn is not how to hold everything together. It is how to place your heart in the care of the one who never lets go. Realizing you are being led, not lost. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the part of you that feels unsure right now. The part that looks at your life and quietly wonders if you took a wrong turn somewhere. The part that replays decisions in your mind and asks, what if I had chosen differently? These thoughts often come in the quiet. They come when the noise fades and the distractions fall away. They come when you are finally alone with your own story. And in those moments, it can feel like you are wandering. Like you stepped off a path that everyone else seems to be walking. Like you are standing in a place that does not have clear signs or clear directions. Let me tell you something gently. Feeling unsure does not mean you are lost. It often means you are between where you were and where you are going. And that space can feel uncomfortable because it does not give you the comfort of familiarity or the excitement of arrival. It gives you something quieter. It gives you trust. My dear brother, my dear sister, there is a difference between being lost and being led. When you are lost, you move in circles. You keep returning to the same places, the same habits, the same patterns, even though they no longer bring you peace. But when you are being led, even if you do not see the full road, you begin to notice small shifts. Your heart no longer settles where it used to. Your soul no longer feels at home in places that once felt familiar. Your desires begin to change, even if you cannot explain why. These are not signs of confusion. These are signs of movement. Let me speak to the feeling of not having clear answers. We often think that guidance means knowing exactly what comes next. We imagine a straight path, a visible destination, a clear plan. But guidance does not always work like that. Sometimes Allah guides you by making you uncomfortable where you are. You may wake up one day and realize that a role you once loved feels heavy. A place you once felt safe in feels tight. A version of yourself you once accepted no longer fits who you are becoming, and you do not yet know what will replace it. This can feel like being lost. But what if it is being outgrown? Children do not know what adulthood looks like. They only know that their old clothes no longer fit. And so they move forward even without understanding what they are growing into. Your soul can go through something similar. It grows beyond a season, a relationship, a dream, a version of life. And Allah allows you to feel that growth before He shows you what comes next. Let me speak to the part of you that wants certainty. We like to know the outcome before we take the step. We like to see the full picture before we move. But faith often asks you to walk with only enough light for the next step, not the whole road, not the final scene, just the next moment. And this can feel frightening because it requires you to let go of control. But it can also feel freeing because it reminds you that you are not carrying this journey alone. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the small signs that you may overlook. Sometimes guidance does not come as a loud answer. It comes as a quiet shift. You lose interest in something you once chased. You feel drawn to something you once ignored. You feel peace stepping away from something that once defined you. These are not random feelings. These can be gentle nudges. Let me speak to the nights when you sit with questions that have no immediate answers. Why am I here? What is Allah preparing me for? Where is my life going? These are deep questions. And sometimes Allah does not answer them with words. He answers them with experiences. He places you in situations that teach you patience. He places you in moments that teach you humility. He places you in spaces that teach you compassion. And through these lessons, you become someone who can understand the answers when they finally arrive. Let me speak to the fear of making the wrong move, the fear of stepping forward and regretting it, the fear of stepping back and missing out. Remember this: Allah is more aware of your future than you are. If you sincerely turn to Him, ask for guidance, and try to walk with honesty in your heart, He does not leave you to wander alone. Even your mistakes can become part of your direction. Even your detours can teach you something you needed to learn. This does not mean every choice will feel easy. It means you are never outside His care. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the moment when you begin to feel different inside. You may notice that your reactions have softened, that your anger fades more quickly, that your heart forgives more easily, that your priorities have shifted. You may not celebrate these changes, but they are signs that you are being led. Because Allah often guides you by shaping who you are, not just where you go. He prepares your character before He changes your circumstances. Let me speak to the idea of trust. Trust does not mean you never feel afraid. Trust means you keep walking even when you feel afraid. It means you keep turning toward Allah even when you do not understand what He is doing. It means you keep believing that this moment has a purpose even when it feels unclear. And over time, this trust becomes something steady inside you. Not loud, not dramatic, just calm. A quiet certainty that you are not drifting through life by accident. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the times when you look back and feel regret. Moments you wish you could change. Paths you wish you had not taken. Words you wish you had not said. These memories can make you feel like you are behind, like you missed your chance. But remember this: Allah is not limited by your past. He can bring good from places you thought were only mistakes. He can open doors you thought were closed forever. He can guide you forward even from a place you did not plan to be. So do not let your past convince you that your future is blocked. Let it remind you of how far you have come. Let me leave you with this gentle reminder, my dear brother, my dear sister. You are not wandering in the dark. You are walking through a path that is being lit step by step. You may not see the destination yet. You may not understand the route. But if you keep turning your heart toward Allah, you will begin to notice something. Even in the uncertainty, even in the quiet, even in the waiting, you are not lost. You are being led. Let me stay with you in this moment a little longer, because this realization does not always arrive all at once. It often comes in waves, slowly, quietly, over time. There are nights when you lie awake and feel like you are standing in the middle of a wide open space. The past is behind you, the future is not yet clear, and the present feels like a long pause. In that space, it is easy to feel small. You may wonder if you are doing enough, if you are becoming enough, if you are moving in the right direction at all. Let me tell you something softly. This space you are standing in is not empty. It is open, and there is a difference. An empty space feels abandoned. An open space feels prepared. Allah often brings you into open spaces in life so He can shape you without the weight of old labels, old expectations, and old roles. Sometimes, before Allah gives you a new name in your life, He gently removes the ones people used to call you by. You may no longer be the strong one, or the successful one, or the one who always has it together, or even the one who always needs help. In this season, you may feel undefined, and that can be uncomfortable, because human beings like to know who they are in the eyes of others. But in this undefining, Allah begins to show you who you are in His sight. Let me speak to the moment when your identity feels uncertain. You may feel like the things that once gave you a sense of purpose no longer feel as strong. The roles you played no longer feel as meaningful. The goals you chased no longer feel as satisfying. This can feel like losing yourself. But what if it is finding yourself? What if Allah is gently peeling away the layers that were built from expectation, comparison, and pressure, so that what remains is something simpler and truer? A heart that wants peace, not just progress. A soul that wants sincerity, not just success. A life that wants closeness to Allah, not just closeness to the world. These shifts do not come with announcements. They come with quiet moments of reflection. Moments when you realize that the things you used to fight for no longer feel worth fighting over. Moments when you realize that the things you used to fear no longer hold the same power over you. This is guidance. It does not always look like a clear sign in the sky. It often looks like a calm settling in the heart. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the idea of being chosen. Many people imagine being chosen by Allah as being placed in a high position, given a visible blessing, or being set apart in a way that others can see. But sometimes being chosen looks very quiet. It looks like being taken away from certain crowds. It looks like being placed in moments of reflection. It looks like being given time to sit with your own heart, because Allah often prepares those He wants to use by first teaching them how to listen. Listen to themselves. Listen to others. Listen to Him. Let me speak to the moments when you feel like you are not moving forward in the way the world measures progress. No big announcements, no dramatic changes, no visible leaps. Just days that look ordinary. But in those ordinary days, something extraordinary can be happening. You may be learning how to speak gently instead of sharply, how to forgive instead of hold on, how to pause instead of react. These are not small victories. They are the kind of changes that shape who you become in every room you walk into. Let me speak to the idea of being guided through people. Sometimes Allah leads you through a conversation that stays in your mind long after it ends. Sometimes through a book, a message, a reminder, or a simple sentence that seems to follow you. You may think that was just a coincidence. But guidance often feels like coincidence until you look back and see the pattern. A word you needed to hear arrives at the right time. A door closes just before something harmful enters. A delay protects you from a path that would have broken your heart. These moments do not always feel gentle when they happen, but they often feel merciful when you understand them later. Let me speak to the seasons when you feel like you are being reshaped. You may notice that your circle becomes smaller. Your conversations become deeper. Your tolerance for shallow things becomes lower. This can feel like isolation, but sometimes it is refinement. Not everyone can walk with you into the next version of your life. Not because they are bad, but because they are meant for a different chapter. And Allah, in His wisdom, helps you turn the page gently. Let me speak to the fear that comes when you begin to change. The fear of outgrowing people. the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of becoming someone unfamiliar even to yourself. These fears are natural. But remember this, Allah does not change you into someone you are not. He changes you into who you were always meant to be. The version of you that is closer to peace, closer to sincerity, closer to purpose. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the idea of timing. You may feel like you are late to something in life, late to success, late to love, late to clarity, late to stability. But consider this. Some things are only beautiful when they arrive at the right moment. A fruit picked too early is bitter. A story told too soon is unfinished. A responsibility given too fast can become a burden instead of a blessing. So Allah times your life with care, not speed. He knows when your heart will be ready, even when you think it already is. Let me speak to the quiet confidence that begins to grow in this season. It is not the confidence of having all the answers. It is the confidence of knowing where to turn when you do not. It is the confidence of knowing that even when the path feels unclear, you are not walking it alone. And this confidence does not make you loud. It makes you calm. You begin to move through life with less panic, less urgency to prove, less need to explain. Because inside you, something has settled, a trust that does not depend on circumstances. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me leave you with this gentle truth. Being led by Allah does not always feel like being carried. Sometimes it feels like being asked to walk in the dark with only a small light in your hand. But that small light is enough. Enough for the next step. Enough for this moment. Enough for today. And as you keep walking, you will begin to see something beautiful. The path does not appear all at once. It appears because you keep moving forward. So if tonight you feel unsure, undefined, or in between, hold this in your heart. You are not wandering without purpose. You are not drifting without care. You are being guided quietly, gently, step by step by the one who sees the whole journey even when you can only see the ground beneath your feet. And sometimes that is the greatest kind of guidance of all. Understanding the silence when the change arrives. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to you in this moment, because this lesson often makes sense only when you look back. While you are living through the quiet, it can feel like nothing is happening. But when the change finally arrives, your heart begins to see the meaning that was hidden inside the waiting. There is a strange feeling that comes just before something in your life shifts. It is not excitement. It is not fear. It is something softer, a sense that something is about to move, even if you cannot say what it is. You may feel a calm where there used to be restlessness. You may feel a release where there used to be tightness. You may feel less desperate for answers, even though you still do not have them. This is often a sign that your heart is ready for what is coming. But let me begin gently. When the change arrives, it rarely arrives with noise. It often arrives quietly. A conversation that opens a door you did not know existed. A moment of clarity that changes how you see your situation. An opportunity that feels small at first, but carries something deeper inside it. And in that moment, you may not immediately celebrate. Sometimes you simply pause, because something inside you recognizes that this moment has roots in a long season of waiting. Let me speak to the way we often imagine change. We imagine it as a big moment, a dramatic turning point, a clear line between before and after. But in many lives, change is gentle. It slips in while you are not looking. It grows while you are still unsure. It becomes real before you fully understand it. And then one day you look back and realize that was the moment everything started to shift. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the way the heart changes before the world does. Often the first sign that a new chapter is beginning is not outside you. It is inside you. You begin to feel lighter about something that once felt heavy. You begin to let go of something you once held tightly. You begin to make peace with a question that once kept you awake at night. These are quiet signs, but they are powerful ones, because when your heart changes, your life soon follows. Let me speak to the waiting that came before this moment. The nights you prayed without knowing what would come next. The days you showed up even when you felt tired. The moments you chose patience when frustration would have been easier. These moments may have felt small when you lived them, but when the change arrives, you begin to see how they were building something inside you. a steadiness, a humility, a trust. These qualities allow you to receive what comes without losing yourself in it. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the fear that can come even when something good begins. We often think we are only afraid of bad things, but sometimes we are also afraid of good things, afraid of responsibility, afraid of change, afraid of stepping into something unfamiliar. And this is where the quiet season shows its value, because in that season you learned how to stand when nothing was certain. So now when something begins to move, you do not panic, you breathe. You take it one step at a time. You remember that the same Allah who carried you through the waiting is also carrying you into the next chapter. Let me speak to the moment when you realize that the silence was shaping you. You may look back and see how your reactions changed, how your expectations softened, how your dependence on people shifted toward dependence on Allah. These changes did not happen in the moment of arrival. They happened in the moment of waiting. This is why when the door finally opens, you do not rush through it the way you once might have. You walk through it with awareness, with gratitude, with care. Let me speak to the idea of readiness. Readiness is not about having everything planned. It is about having a heart that can remain steady no matter what happens. In the quiet season, you may have learned how to sit with uncertainty, how to carry questions without letting them turn into bitterness, how to wait without letting waiting turn into resentment. These are signs of a ready heart. And when a heart is ready, it can receive a blessing without turning it into a burden. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the way Allah connects moments across time. A lesson you learned months ago suddenly makes sense. A hardship you faced earlier becomes the very thing that helps you now. A prayer you made long ago feels like it is being answered in a different form, and you begin to see that your life was not a series of random events. It was a thread, each moment tied to the next, each season preparing you for the one that followed. Let me speak to the quiet gratitude that can fill your chest when you realize this. Not loud celebration, not dramatic joy, just a deep, calm thankfulness. A feeling that says, I am exactly where I need to be. This kind of gratitude does not depend on everything being perfect. It depends on recognizing that everything has been purposeful. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the idea of mercy. When the change arrives, you may notice that it did not come in the way you expected. It may be different from what you imagined. It may be smaller than what you hoped. It may be quieter than what you prayed for. But sometimes Allah answers your prayers in a form that protects your heart. He gives you what you need, not just what you asked for. And in time, you realize that His answer was kinder than your request. Let me speak to the way this understanding can change how you look at your past. Moments you once saw as wasted now feel necessary. Delays you once resented now feel merciful. Silences you once feared now feel protective. This does not erase the pain you felt in those moments, but it gives them meaning. And meaning can soften even the heaviest memories. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me leave you with this gentle truth. When the change finally arrives, it is not just the world around you that is different. It is you. You are calmer. You are steadier. You are less desperate and more trusting. And that is when you realize something beautiful. The silence you once struggled with was not a gap in your life. It was a bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And you crossed it, not by rushing, not by forcing, but by walking step by step with Allah beside you. So if you are still in the quiet tonight, hold this in your heart. The silence is not wasted. It is preparing you for the moment when you will look back and say softly and with gratitude, now I understand. Let me stay with you in this moment a little longer, because this understanding does not always come all at once. It unfolds gently like light slowly filling a dark room. At first, you only see a corner, then a shape. Then over time, the whole space begins to make sense. There is a moment that often comes after the change begins, when you find yourself thinking about who you were during the waiting. You remember the nights you felt small, the mornings you woke up without excitement, the days you carried hope quietly without knowing if it would ever be answered. And you may feel a softness toward that version of yourself. Not judgment, not regret, but compassion, because you realize how much strength it took to keep going without seeing the full picture. Let me speak to the way memory changes when understanding arrives. Moments that once felt empty begin to feel full. Silences that once felt cold begin to feel gentle. Delays that once felt cruel begin to feel careful. It does not mean the waiting was easy. It means it was meaningful. My dear brother, my dear sister, there is a quiet gratitude that grows in this stage. Not the kind of gratitude that makes you want to speak loudly, the kind that settles deep in your chest. A feeling that says, I was carried even when I did not realize it. You begin to see how small things lined up. A conversation that happened at just the right time. A door that closed before something harmful entered. A delay that saved you from a path that would have drained you. These moments may not have looked like mercy when they happened, but now they begin to feel like protection. Let me speak to the way your trust changes when you see this. Before, you may have trusted Allah because you believed you should. Now, you trust Him because you have seen how He moves in your life. This is a different kind of faith. It is not built only on hope, it is built on experience. You begin to carry a quiet confidence into the next season of your life. Not the confidence of knowing everything will go exactly as you want, but the confidence of knowing that whatever happens, you will not be alone in it. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the humility that often comes with this realization. You begin to see that not every achievement was purely your own effort. Not every success was only your planning. Not every rescue was something you arranged. There were moments when things shifted in ways you could not explain. Opportunities appeared, hearts softened, paths opened, and you begin to understand that you were supported by something beyond what you could see. This does not make you feel small in a painful way. It makes you feel small in a peaceful way. Small in a world held by something greater. Let me speak to the way your prayers change after this. Before, you may have prayed mostly for outcomes. Give me this. Take that away. Let this work out. Now, your prayers may begin to sound different. Keep my heart steady. Do not let me lose myself. Help me remain grateful. You begin to care not only about what you receive, but about who you remain while receiving it. This is a sign of a heart that has been shaped by waiting. Let me speak to the people who may enter your life in this new season. You may notice that you connect differently now. You listen more. You judge less. You understand more because you remember how it felt to be in the quiet. You remember how heavy it felt to wait. And this memory softens the way you treat others. You become more patient, more gentle, more aware of the invisible battles people carry. This is a gift that often grows in silence. Let me speak to the moments when you still feel unsure, even after change begins. Because understanding does not remove all questions. There will still be days when you wonder what comes next. Moments when you feel uncertain again. Seasons when the path feels unclear. But now there is something different inside you. A memory of how you were guided before. And this memory becomes a source of calm. You remind yourself, I have been carried through uncertainty before, I can walk through it again. Let me speak to the way you begin to look at your future. You may still make plans. You may still set goals. You may still hope for certain things. But there is a gentler hold in your hands now. You plan, but you also release. You hope, but you also trust. You work, but you also surrender the outcome. This balance is something the quiet season teaches you. Let me speak to the nights when you sit with gratitude and memory together. You may replay moments that once brought you pain, and instead of feeling only sadness, you feel understanding. Not because the pain disappears, but because it now has a place in your story, a place that led you here. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to the way this understanding can change how you face future waiting. Because waiting does not end after one season. Life will always have moments of pause. But now you meet them differently. You do not panic as quickly. You do not lose hope as deeply. You do not feel as alone. Because you remember that silence can be a space where something is being prepared. Let me leave you with this gentle reflection. One day, you may meet someone who is in the quiet season you once walked through. They may feel lost. They may feel behind. They may feel forgotten. And without giving a long explanation, without offering perfect words, you may simply sit with them in their silence, because you understand it now. And sometimes that understanding is one of the most beautiful changes that comes from the waiting. So if tonight you find yourself looking back at the season of quiet, do not rush past it in your memory. Sit with it for a moment. Honor the patience you showed. Honor the trust you tried to hold. Honor the heart you kept open even when you did not know what was coming. Because that version of you carried you to this moment. And that, my dear brother, my dear sister, is something worth being grateful for. A soft reminder for the heart that is still waiting. My dear brother, my dear sister, let me speak to you in this final quiet moment, not to teach, not to explain, but simply to sit with you where you are right now. If your life still feels paused, if your answers still feel far away, if your heart still feels like it is standing in a place between what was and what has not yet come, I want you to know something gently. You are not forgotten here. There is a kind of waiting that feels empty, and there is a kind of waiting that feels held. Even if you cannot describe it, even if you do not always feel it, your waiting is not happening in a place where Allah is absent. He is present in every breath you take, in every quiet prayer you whisper, in every tear you wipe away before anyone else can see it. Let me speak to the nights when you feel tired of being patient. When you have been strong for a long time, when you have told yourself to trust for a long time, when you have carried hope quietly without seeing it turn into anything solid yet, those nights can feel heavy. You may lie there and think, how much longer? And my dear brother, my dear sister, that question itself is a prayer. It is a prayer that says, I am still here, I am still trying, I have not given up. Let me speak to the part of you that feels unseen. It can feel like the world moves past you, like people are busy living their lives while you are standing still, holding something no one else can see. But remember this, just because your struggle is quiet does not mean it is small. Some of the greatest battles are not fought in public places. They are fought in the heart, in the mind, in the long hours of waiting when no one is clapping for your effort. And Allah sees those battles. He sees the moments you choose patience instead of bitterness. He sees the moments you choose prayer instead of despair. He sees the moments you choose to keep going even when you feel tired of hoping. Let me speak to the fear that sometimes grows in waiting. The fear that you will always be here. The fear that this season will never end. The fear that you are missing out on the life you were meant to live. Fear has a way of making the future feel heavy. But let me offer you a softer thought. You are not standing in a dead end. You are standing in a doorway. And even if the door has not opened yet, it is still a door. Let me speak to the way Allah often answers prayers. We sometimes expect answers to come as changes in our situation. But often the first answer comes as a change in our heart. You may notice that you are becoming calmer even though nothing outside has changed. That you are becoming gentler even though the world has not become easier. That you are becoming steadier even though the path is still unclear. These are not small changes. These are signs that something is being prepared inside you. Let me speak to the idea of timing. Timing is not just about when something happens. It is about who you are when it happens. There are moments in life that would have broken you if they had arrived too early. There are blessings that would have overwhelmed you if you had received them before your heart was ready. So when Allah asks you to wait, it is not always because the moment is not ready. Sometimes it is because you are still becoming. Let me speak to the quiet strength that grows in waiting. You may not feel strong. You may feel tired. You may feel uncertain. You may feel small. But every day you continue, even gently, even imperfectly, something inside you is being built. A resilience that does not shout. A faith that does not need to be proven. A trust that does not depend on things going your way. These are not things the world easily takes away. Let me speak to the moments when you feel like giving up on asking. When you think, what is the point of praying if nothing changes? In those moments, remember this. Prayer is not only about changing what is in your hands. It is also about changing what is in your heart. Every time you turn to Allah, even without words, even without strength, you are reminding your soul where its home is. And that reminder itself is a form of peace. Let me speak to the way you may look back on this season one day. You may remember the nights you felt alone, the days you felt uncertain, the moments you felt like you were standing still while life moved around you, and you may feel something you did not feel at the time. Gratitude, not because it was easy, but because it shaped you. You may see how it taught you patience when you wanted speed, trust when you wanted control, connection with Allah when you wanted answers from the world. Let me speak to the version of you that is listening right now. The one who may be tired, the one who may be searching, the one who may be holding on quietly. I want you to hear this. Your story is not on pause. It is being written in a way that does not rush past the important parts. Every chapter matters, even the quiet ones. Let me leave you with this gentle closing, my dear brother, my dear sister. If tonight you feel like you are still waiting, still hoping, still unsure, place your heart in the care of the one who sees the beginning and the end at the same time. You do not have to carry the future. You only have to carry this moment. Breathe in. Let go just a little and trust that the silence you are in is not empty. It is full of care, full of attention, full of a mercy that is moving toward you, even if you cannot see it yet. Because Allah does not forget the hearts that wait for Him. And one day, when you look back at this season, you will not only see what you were waiting for, you will see who you were becoming while you waited. And that, my dear brother, my dear sister, will be one of the most beautiful parts of your story. My dear brother, my dear sister, before you move on from this moment, before the noise of the world comes back into your hands and your thoughts, let me leave you with this gentle reminder. You are not walking through your life unseen. Every step you take in silence, every tear you wipe away without telling anyone, every prayer you whisper when no one else is listening, Allah is aware of it all. If tonight you still feel unsure, if your heart still feels like it is standing between what was and what is coming, that is okay. You do not have to understand the whole story right now. You only have to trust the one who is writing it. So take a slow breath. Place your worries gently in Allah's care and remind your heart of this simple truth. The same Allah who brought you to this moment will not leave you in the next one. Stay close to Him. And when you are ready, carry this quiet peace back into your life. Because even if you walk back into noise, you now know where to return when you need to be still again.